Welcome back to Cult Pop. I'm your host, Jim Hall, and next up we've got a great guest today. We've got Lauren Groff, the author of The Monsters of Templeton, which is one of the coolest books. I'm telling you, pick it up. It's one of the coolest books you're ever going to read. It's part monster tale, part ghost story, part historical novel, part romance, and all of these things blend together to make just one incredible story. Lauren, first of all, thank you for being on Cult Pop.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm very excited to talk with you. I'm just so excited after reading your novel. You really have written something to be proud of here. Obviously, you know you've gotten a lot of accolades from just all kinds of sources, so I'm one of many to just praise you. But what a wonderful novel. I put it down when I finally finished, just a big smile on my face. Just an incredible read, and really quite a mix of many different kind of books, all of which I enjoy. There's the ghost story element, there's the history element, there's a little bit of romance, there's the monster that starts the book off. But why don't you go right ahead and tell us a little bit about The Monsters of Templeton. Tell us a little bit about Willie Upton, the star of the novel that we meet early on, coming back after a failed relationship. And then I'll ask you some more questions.
Sure. So The Monsters of Templeton is about my hometown of Cooperstown, New York, which is this tiny little village of about 2,000 people. But it's really incredibly beautiful. It has this 9.5-mile lake, it has these rolling green hills, it has this incredible architecture from the 200 years of its existence. But it also has the Baseball Hall of Fame and an opera and all sorts of museums. So it's a very strange, very rich mixture. Another thing that it has, which I found fascinating when I was growing up there, was that it has a huge amount of history and legend. And James Fenimore Cooper, who is one of our nation's great writers, one of the first ones, came from Cooperstown. And when he wrote about Cooperstown, he called it Templeton. So, you know, I began this book a long time ago, I think it was 2002, and I was living in California, and I was just feeling incredibly homesick, and so I thought I'd finished 2 novels that were really cruddy, and so threw them away and started thinking about my next project. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be wonderful to spend 2 or 3 hours a day in Cooperstown so I wouldn't feel as homesick anymore? So that's what I did, and I did a lot of research, and in my research I just dug up a lot of wonderful history and mythology about the town. And so really what the book is about is about my narrator. Her name is Willie Upton. She's a 28-year-old archaeology graduate student, and she comes home to Templeton, which is where her family is from. She's actually the scion of the Temple family who created the town. And her life has just imploded. And when she gets there, her mother, who's pretty much one of my favorite characters in the book, Vivian, who's this former hippie, now Baptist convert, and she's just this wonderful, almost semi-bitter kind of acerbic character. She tells her daughter this secret, and the secret keeps Willie in the town, and it keeps Willie looking through her family's past. And there's also a monster, or multiple monsters, but there's an actual lake monster, which comes from which comes from mythology, the mythology of my hometown. You know, when we were growing up, we saw when we were swimming in the lake something, and everybody has a story about the monster. So,
well, that's a couple of questions I had for you in regards to the history of Templeton, which is, i.e., Cooperstown. How much of that history that you brought to the novel is really Cooperstown history? Is it a lot factual, or is it a lot fiction?
Well, it's both. A lot of it is factual and a lot of it is fiction. So really what I did is I took a lot of the history and used it as sort of a spark for the imagination, as opposed to what a true historical writer does. You know, I'm a literary writer, so I don't have the same adherence to the rules of genre that other people do. So I can do whatever the heck I want that I want. So, for instance, there was an enormous fire in 1862. Now, did it start the way I said it started? Definitely not. You know, that was my construction and my idea. But, you know, I did take a lot of actual characters. So, for instance, the character of Marmaduke Temple, who's the character who begins Templeton way back in the beginning, at the end of the 18th century, is based on James Fenimore Cooper's father. And when Fenimore Cooper wrote this wonderful book called The Pioneers, which is about Cooperstown, he's calling it Templeton, he writes about his father as Marmaduke Temple. So I have these great characters who have already been filtered through literature. And they're actual historical characters, and I just sort of took them and sort of plucked them from James Fenimore Cooper's own work, which I found incredibly fun to do. So yeah, for me, it's a launching point for my imagination history, but I obviously have a deep love of it. So,
Lauren, one of the really cool elements of the book is that when you go through it, there's old letters that, as Willie's looking up her past, because her mom drops a bombshell about who her father. Definitely, she had one expectation of what who her father was, and then a bombshell is dropped, so she wants to find out who her father is. So she goes through all these old historical documents that we see in the book, old letters, and then all the cool old pictures. Where did you come across those?
Well, that idea wasn't actually in the book from the beginning, and it took me so long to write this book that I had ideas coming in and out of my head all the time. But when I was writing, it actually helped me very much to have pictures of my characters. So I would go to antique stores, and I would go to eBay and find the perfect photograph for a certain character and have that person on the wall as I was writing. And then I just got a little bit carried away in a lot of ways, and I found this one, Marmaduke himself, the founder of the town. I had to buy this 18th century oil painting of some random Dutchman, and it's now hanging in my dining room in the other room because I have no other space in my house that's big enough for it. But he's this kind of glowering, angry, dark portrait that I have in my house right now, which my guests find very eerie and scary. But some of the other pictures, Vivian, the mother, as a child, is actually my own mom, who's totally adorable. And then Vivian, as an adult, is my editor, who was incredibly gracious and generous and sacrificed herself in a way. So.
Well, that's very cool, because the pictures, when folks at home go out, pick up the novel, it really makes for a really fun and interesting read, because you're reading a great book, but then, okay, here's a picture you come across. Here's the old notes you come across. So parts of it, it's almost like you're looking in on somebody else's history. Part of it, you're reading a novel. I just loved how you set up this book. It made it just a really fun experience. And obviously, I'm not the only person that feels this way, because I'm just so excited after you and I made contact and I asked you to be on the show. I look at Entertainment Weekly, and Entertainment Weekly, on their once a month or once every 2 months, they come out with a must list, a must see, the movies you've got to see, the plays you've got to see, the books you've got to read, DVDs you've got to rent. And The Monsters of Templeton is given an A, and it's on their must list. What does that do? You're a first-time author. What does that do to your mindset? Are you just blown away by this?
I'm totally blown. I think I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and I'll still be an unpublished writer, and my heart will be broken all over again. Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't expecting any of this because I went to get my MFA, and I know the realities of the publishing world. I'm just I know that whatever attention I get is just a bonus, because first-time novelists never get any attention, and I'm just overjoyed by what people have been saying about the book. And I get probably 3 or 4 emails a day from people who are touched by it, which it's amazing, because when you work all these years on something and you don't actually believe that it's actually going to come out, to have someone say and read the book, not only say something, but even read your book, is just, it blows your mind. So and to have it publicized in large venues like People or Entertainment Weekly or the New York Times, that's just enormous and scary and wonderful. And I'm still dreaming.
I'm incredibly happy for you, because I think the book's tremendous. I'm happy we have you on. The other thing that really excited me is when you read the back, and the back of novels now always feature the blurbs by different authors, somehow you got Stephen King to say these wonderful glowing words about you, and I won't read the whole thing, but Lauren Groff's debut novel is everything a reader might have expected from this gifted writer and more. And then it goes on to say, much more and wonderful things, and he's been so complimentary of you. How did you manage to get Stephen King to put a blurb for your novel? Because he notoriously doesn't do that. He says, I won't do a blurb unless I read the book, and a lot of authors will throw their name on anything. He has to read the book, and he's got to absolutely love it. So somehow you pulled this amazing feat off. How did you do that?
Well, first of all, he's an incredibly gracious and graceful writer, and he's the perfect model for the way that a writer who's been around for, I think, 30 years for him by now should be mentoring young writers who are unproven. And I'm so grateful to him. But what happened was I had a story in Best American Short Stories in this past one, which Stephen King actually was the editor for. And because he edited that and he knew my work from there and he liked my story, he said, sure, I'll read Lauren's book. And then I didn't even know what he thought of it. I didn't know if he was going to give me a blurb at all, because it's incredibly hard to get blurbs from anyone. And I wake up one Friday and he's got this great column in the back of Entertainment Weekly called The King of Pop. And he mentions The Monsters of Templeton in there, and I pretty much had a breakdown because I was like, what's going on with this is not my life, this is incredible. So it was an honor, and I'll be doing this big event with him in a week and a half, and I'm so excited, and it's down in Sarasota, just him and me on a stage, so I can't wait for it.
Well, be sure to tell Stephen about us, because we're big fans of Stephen, and we'd love to have him on Cult Pop.
Oh, sure!
But we're so pleased to have you, and I'm sure when that Entertainment Weekly episode came out, did you go pick up 5, 6, 7 dozen issues? Because my goodness, if my name popped up like that in Entertainment Weekly, I would just be floored. I remember reading that, and that's one of the things that really got me going. When it's a great article that comes out about every 3 weeks in Entertainment Weekly, and he's usually recommending something I enjoy, from music to novels to movies. And so that's kind of how the contact began with you and I. And that must just blow you away. And then Entertainment Weekly after that was nice enough to have you on their must list.
Yeah. No, it's just been a dream. So yeah, I don't even know how to thank them enough. I don't know what to get for Stephen to say thank you, because I'm sure he's used to getting all sorts of creepy things from his fans. Or
sure.
I'm thinking of Misery right now. But no, that's not me at all. But I'm blown away, and it's really exciting, and I'm afraid for the next novel. So, it'll be pale in comparison. I'm a little bit nervous about that.
Well, for right now, I would recommend just bask in the glory of this great novel and continue to enjoy the accolades. But while I still have you here, you mentioned earlier short stories, and when I visited your website, you can access a few of your short stories from that, and you've got a real cool website. Talks a little bit about you. You've got a daily blog on there, tells you about appearances, and also links to these short stories and stuff. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your website?
Sure, it's just, your standard website, but it's laurengroff.com, and I have fun with my blog, and I do have events and all sorts of other things on there. I'm going to do a big updating sometime soon, but don't hold me to it, because I'm notoriously slow at that. But no, it's fun, and I was a very private person before I became a writer, and now I find that I actually have 2 blogs that I have to juggle. There's also the monstersoftempleton.com, and so becoming this completely different creature from the one that I'd always thought that I was going to be was a major transition. But it's been fun so far, and yeah, thank you for letting me plug my own blog. I appreciate that.
Oh, and we've put the ID up throughout the show while we've been talking to you, so folks at home can get right on both those websites. But I enjoyed your website in particular. I thought it was pretty cool, and I think it's neat that the links to the stories, your short stories there, so that people can check out your work, and as soon as they read those, they'll think, oh God, I've got to go get the novel.
I hope so.
Is it too early to ask? I know I said, well, you should bask in the glory, but are you already thinking ahead of what's next? More short stories, another novel? What are you thinking for the future, Lauren?
Of course, I actually have 2 books under contract, so I have to get them done. The first one will be a collection of short stories. It'll be called Delicate Edible Birds, and that's going to be out in January. And I'm really, really excited about it. That's what I'm spending most of my days on right now. And then the other one is a novel tentatively called Arcadia. And I have no idea when that's going to be out, because I have no idea when that it's going to be done, because novel writing is a marathon and it takes forever to do. So yeah, I'm just hoping someday it'll be good enough to send out.
Well, Lauren, that's just about taken up our time here. I want to sincerely tell you, you've absolutely been delightful. Reading the novel for me was just a great joy. Part of the fun for me with Cult Pop is that I specifically just feature things I think I'm going to enjoy, and so I end up featuring. I'm so fortunate because I get to talk with authors like you, or actors, or people that their works have really brought me joy. And The Monsters of Templeton brought me a few days of just reading bliss. I absolutely love the novel, and I mean, I can't say strongly enough how much I recommend it. My sincere congratulations on just a wonderful debut. I wish you continued success, and we'll be in touch here in the winter then, and when you've got your short story collection, we'd certainly like to have you on again and talk about that.
You're so sweet. Thank you so much for having me on it. I appreciate it.
Okay, Lauren. Folks at home, that was Lauren Groff. Groff, she's the author of The Monsters of Templeton, just a wonderful novel. You've seen her website up throughout the show. Please go to the bookstore, pick it up, take a look at her website. I think you're just really going to enjoy this young lady. Fantastic novel and a fantastic book. For right now, I want you to stay tuned, and we'll be back with more Cult Pop. Welcome back to Cult Pop. Jim Hall here again, and we've got something really interesting for you now. I've had all kinds of interesting authors on over here the past 5-6 months. None more interesting than Corey Redekop, who we're about to talk to, author of Shelf Monkey. Shelf Monkey is one of the coolest books I've read in the past couple of years. Part satire, part attack at part of the idiots in publishing and people who promote publishing and some of the things that really get on my nerves, but one of the funnest damn books to read. And I'm telling you folks, you got to go out, after you watch this interview, go out and find it. Corey, thanks so much for being on the show. Shelf Monkey, one of the most unique and fun books I've read in the past couple of years. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Well, the book came about from my personal experiences working in a big box bookstore. And it involves the protagonist, Thomas. He's depressed, he's lonely, he's not where he wants to be in life. So what he's done is gotten a job at a bookstore. And he sort of ends up befriending a couple of the employees there. And they have for lack of a better term, book club that takes a very strange and unusual turn. I don't want to give too much away, but intermixed with that is a talk show host, very popular all over the television, and that talk show host, Monroe Purvis, has his own book club, which is going like gangbusters. Everybody buys every book, and the books themselves are abysmally bad, and Thomas and his friends sort of take up the cause that somehow Monroe must be stopped.
Well, I absolutely love the character of Monroe Purvis. In my mind, was a cross between everything I hate about Oprah, everything I hate about Dr. Phil, and maybe Arsenio Hall all thrown together. So I think you did a great job in making just a very goofy and dislikable character. So you did a great job of writing that character.
Well, thank you very much. Actually, I mean, when I was first writing it, I actually toyed with the idea. I mean, obviously, it takes its idea from Oprah, of course, but I actually toyed with the idea of actually making it Oprah, because many authors use real people in their novels, and under the rules of satire, it's certainly allowed, but Oprah has all the money, and I didn't really want to fight that if it came up to it, so call me a coward, but I decided to make up the character instead.
Well, Corey, yeah, no need to irritate Oprah, that's for sure. But I think you've written a book that, hey, it could find itself on that list because it's a fantastic book. But reading a little bit about your history, and you just spoke on it, you kind of started off working at one of the big book chains like we have here in the States, up there in Canada. And did that kind of lead to some of the frustration with the characters have in Shelf Monkey?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I worked at the bookstore is called, the big bookstore here is called Chapters. It's like a Borders down south. And when I worked there, it was really when Oprah's book club was near its height. I mean, just the absolute mania. And then she stopped it for a while. So it became kind of sort of a running gag for everyone who worked there that people would come in and all they wanted was what Oprah told them to read. And it's still like that to an extent. I think it's a little less now. But it became very frustrating for people who want to, for us who want to let people know, about these other books. Those books, some of those books are really good. I'm not going to argue with Oprah. I mean, she recommended Rohinton Mystery. She recommended Anne-Marie MacDonald. These are great novels. But she also recommended Wally Lamb, and that's kind of the sticking point with me. I can't stand the man. I mean, I'm sure he's a lovely man, but I can't stand his books. But it was just that finality of their thought processes is just that Oprah, this is what Oprah told me to read, and that's the way it is. And it seemed like it was almost sort of a fundamentalist zeal to it in terms of the born-again Christians, where they cannot read under the tenets of what they believe. They cannot read something that sort of contradicts their tenets. It's the same sort of way with the Oprah. I mean, Oprah told me to read this, and that's good enough for me, and anything else might actually spoil the experience for me. So it became very, very frustrating, and actually after a while became kind of a joke. And then I started playing in my head, if I actually met Oprah or she came to the store, like it would ever happen, but you got your down periods and you daydream, and that's sort of where the idea for the entire novel came out of.
Well, Corey, Oprah's book club has been one of my big pet peeves forever, so it really stuck a nerve and a chord with me, and it really made me laugh. But talking a little bit more about Shelf Monkey, I went online to just kind of do some research about you and more about what the general thought was on the book. It's getting incredible reviews, a lot of interesting comparisons, and sometimes I don't like comparisons when people compare it to stuff because I think it doesn't ring true. But one that kind of did ring, a few different people mentioned it, so I'm going to bring it up. And a few different people said, the literary type meets Fight Club. And kind of meaning the librarian meets Fight Club. And do you respect that? Will you take that as a compliment, or do you think it's off, or do you want to expand upon that a little bit?
I'll take whatever I can get, actually. I mean, when I wrote the book, it's my first novel, and I really just wrote it to make myself laugh. I never actually thought it would get published. And then to have comparisons in that matter to authors I respect and admire enormously. I mean, it's Fight Club. How can you argue with Fight Club? And it also lends to what the book's talking about too. I mean, I knew that going in, if I ever got this published, there's going to be a problem in that it's about people obsessed with works of literature, and yet this is really not literature per se. It's not good for you. It's pulp literature is what it is. So I thought it was like a pulp novel about literature. And to get those kind of comparisons, I mean, I've read someone compared me to Max Barry, and I thought that was, and then I'd never read Max Barry, and I go read him, and it's just, it's exactly right. It's sort of the same mindset, and I certainly don't mind it. I mean, I think that's how you find new authors, is like you branch out from the authors you like, you find someone that's compared like them, and it just goes on from there. So, no, I take it all as an incredible compliment.
Well, you were sent my way by a mutual friend, and he couldn't have done me a better favor than recommending your novel and you to be on the show, because, like I say, I got a heck of a kick out of it. And all the things I liked about Fight Club are in the book, but more importantly for me, just him not knowing, as a young person, I worked in a used bookstore, and not as much as what you went through, but a lot of the similar, some people getting too carried away with the literature things, not enough carried away. I really loved it, and I just think you've hit so many interesting different points, and so many people can pick this book up and really, really, really get a smile out of it. And I just want to congratulate you for an incredible first novel.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, it was just a ton of fun to read, and I'm thinking that one of the best compliments I've gotten is that a lot of people read it and they've told me, now I have to read all these books that I talk about in the book. And I was playing with a lot of the stuff. A lot of the stuff, it's what the characters like, not necessarily what I would like. But I like the fact that people have taken it. My editor had an idea that, we talked about this back and forth. Should we actually explain more of the books that the characters eventually talk about? And then we decided, together, no, it's not necessary. I mean, if you're reading it and you get the references, great. And if you don't get the references, you're going to want to go out and read them. So either way, and if you just don't get the references at all, if they fly over your head, well, then that's fine too. I mean, we knew going in what the audience was for this. The people who are going to like it were people like me. So they're going to get the jokes. And if they don't get the jokes, hopefully they'll take something out of it.
Okay, Corey, so the literary references, you do recommend that people should kind of look into some of those books, or that was just more for your fun, right? Writing in some of the references.
Yeah, it was. I can't actually even admit to having read all the novels that the characters say they've read. I mean, most of them are novels that I want to read, and I've read, obviously, the majority of them, but I mean, it was important that the characters grow beyond just what was in my head. So a lot of them, Aubrey, for example, the guy who runs the book club, he's at one point reading David Foster Wallace's Infinite Jest, and I've read a few things by David Foster Wallace, and honestly, he makes my nose bleed. The depth of it it's too hard for me to read sometimes. But people love him, and the character would love him. So that it was important for me to make those distinctions.
Excellent. Well, Corey, I absolutely love the book Shelf Monkey. I think you did an amazing job on your first novel. Really something to be proud of.
Thank you.
And also, real quick, I just wanted to remind people to go to your website. A lot of cool things going on there. So as we're wrapping it up, why don't you just tell the folks at home your website real quick?
My website is... oh boy, I can't remember it now. My website is shelf-monkey.blogspot.com. I started it to simply promote the novel, but it's sort of taken off, and now I put in reviews as well, talk about my new novel that I'm working on, whatever comes to mind.
Well, that's a really cool website, and we're going to have a link up for it, both on the show and at our website. So I wish you continued success, Corey. You did an amazing job, and folks at home, I really recommend you pick up Shelf Monkey. It's an amazing book. I think you'll just get a big smile on your face when you're done reading it. But right now, we're going to have to wrap it up, so we'll see you next time on Cult Pop.
Osama bin Laden calls getting nuclear weapons a religious duty.
Today, materials that can be used to make nuclear weapons are stored in more than 40 countries.
Sometimes protected by just a chain-link fence.
Yet not enough is being done to lock down these materials
Before terrorists steal them. Why did we learn all this?
My mother,
My son.
my sister-in-law.
Were all murdered September 11th.
Help protect America.
Together we can.
Please join us.